Good morning and welcome to the Meet Your Future campaign. My name is Jane and I am part of the Education, Work and Skills team at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. I am also joined this morning by my colleague Liz Calvert, who is behind the scenes helping. For those who have joined us before, you might be aware that Meet Your Future was launched in April 2019 by Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, to enable more young people like you to meet and connect with different businesses and employers to explore lots of different careers. This week is National Careers Week and our theme for the week is careers in the public sector. Did you know that the public sector employs 5.7 million people across the country, from our hospitals to transport, national government to local government? It is the industry that keeps life moving. Have you ever thought about a career in the NHS, for example, or working in politics? These are jobs within the public sector, and our Meet Your Future sessions this week will introduce you to jobs and careers that you will have heard of, and lots of jobs of careers that will be new to you. In this session today, we'll hear from Kevin Lee, who is the Director of the Mayor's Office. Hopefully this session will inform you, inspire you and highlight why you can be hopeful and optimistic about your future career in Greater Manchester. Please make use of the Q&A box for any questions or thoughts you have throughout the session. You'll be able to see this on the right hand side of your screen, and my co-host Liz will be publishing questions that come through. Please ask your teacher to put any questions you have in the box. Please don't be shy, there's no such thing as a silly question, and we'll cover these questions at the end with Kevin. If you'd like to use captions or subtitles during the event, please select caption/subtitles on in your video controls. Without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Kevin.
Well, thanks very much, Jane, and good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining this session this morning. This is quite an unusual one for me because as the Director of the Mayor's Office and political advisor to Andy, my job is normally in the background, in the shadows, as it were. So to be front of house doing something like this is actually quite unusual for me, but I really welcome it and thank you all again for joining. What I thought might be useful is if I give you a bit of background about sort of how I came into this role, and then a little bit about what the job itself involves. So I am quite old, and so I got involved in politics. Funnily enough, I first got interested when I was 14, which was around the time of the 1979 general election. And I think I was just at the age where I started listening to what was being said about politics. And I got really interested in that. And so when I was 15, I joined the political party. And in my case, that was the Labour Party. And I joined it because I wanted to get involved. I wanted to do things and to sort of campaign and to try to make a difference to society and to people that in my local community. So I kind of got involved with the Labour Party. But that wasn't working. That was as a party member and as a volunteer going out campaigning. But I then got a job because I didn't go to university. So I came straight out of college after my what were then A levels. And I started in the civil service in Customs and Excise, funnily enough. So I worked for Customs and Excise for about 10 years, from 1984 right through to 1994. But throughout that time, I'd kept involved in politics, in the Labour Party, in the campaigns and the various elections, the local elections, the general elections and such like. And then in 1994, an opportunity came up for me to actually start working for a short period of time for the Labour Party for a particular European election campaign. So I was lucky enough that Customs and Excise gave me a career break to work for the Labour Party on those elections for 6 months. And that convinced me actually that I wanted to work full time in politics in some way. I was just lucky then in some respects that an opportunity then came up with the Labour Party as an organiser for the local area, which I was then able to take up. But funnily enough, I had a long conversation with my mum and dad because I got quite a secure job with Customs and Excise. But then I was jumping across into politics, which I think you can all appreciate can be quite unstable at times, if we can put it like that. It's not necessarily secure all the way through. But I took, and it was also a pay cut actually that I was taking. But I decided that was the right thing for me at that time, because it's really what I wanted to do. I was fascinated, I was engaged, I really enjoyed doing the political work. So I took a bit of a risk at that time and made the jump from the civil service into working for the Labour Party. I then worked in various different roles for the party through to 2007. And from 2000, or the end of 1999, right through to then, I was the regional director for the Labour Party in the Northwest region. And basically that meant looking after all of the different elections that happen in the constituencies to elect MPs to go to Westminster, but also any local elections for electing councillors. And then, so I worked through all that time for the Labour Party. I got to know different people. And funnily enough, I got to know Andy Burnham during that time, because he was a Member of Parliament for Lee in the Northwest, where I was the regional director. So we got to know each other. Andy did a number of events for me, so training events for party members and volunteers. I worked on one of his campaigns locally for him to be elected as Member of Parliament. And we got to know each other. And then in 2007, I left working for the Labour Party, and I did a couple of years, or 3 years actually, of what you'd call consultancy work. So working for different organisations on different particular projects. One of those happened to be for Lancashire County Cricket Club. And I don't know if you all know this, but Andy actually played for Lancashire under 15s. So he had a relationship with the cricket club. So while I was working for Lancashire Cricket Club on what is now called the Point, for any of you that have ever attended Old Trafford for the cricket, you'll know that big red building that is there. That was part of the project that I was working on, and I got Andy to support the campaign to make that happen. And I was also working for what is now Transport for Greater Manchester, just for a couple of days a week. And I can remember after the 2010 general election, when obviously Labour lost that election, Gordon Brown resigned, I can remember being sat at Piccadilly Place, as it still is, where Transport for Greater Manchester is now, sat at the desk, and I got a phone call from a colleague saying to me, would I work on then David Miliband's leadership campaign? And I said to them, well, I'll think about it, but if Andy Burnham is going to stand for the leadership, I'll be supporting Andy. And then, of course, Andy did stand for that leadership election. So I texted him and said, anything you want me to do to help? And what I meant by that is delivering a few leaflets or talking to people to get them to support him. And he said to me, well, come along to this meeting on Thursday morning. This was a Tuesday. So come along to this meeting on Thursday morning and you can hear what I'm planning. So I went along, and I still don't know quite how it happened, but I ended up walking out of that meeting as the campaign manager for his leadership election. So that meant all of the consultancy, the different projects I was working on, I had to close down very quickly. Luckily, a number of them were coming to the end anyway. So I had to clear all of those out. So, you know, you can't really do sort of a leadership election for a political party and work for public sector organisations. It wouldn't be right. So I closed all of those down and worked full time then on Andy's leadership campaign in 2010. Following that, that finished in around the autumn, somewhere like the September, October of 2010. And then in 2011, Andy asked me to work for him as his head of office in Westminster while he was a Member of Parliament. So I did that. And I travelled from, because I lived in Prestwich, where I still live, and this is my conservatory that you can see behind me. So this is my temporary office from working from home. So I worked, I lived in Manchester, in Prestwich, and I travelled to London every week, down on a Monday, back on a Thursday evening, working for Andy in the Westminster office during that time, where he was a shadow Secretary of State, so shadowing what the government of the day was doing in health mainly, but also Home Office, shadowing the Home Secretary at the latter part. And then in 2016, Andy said he was going to stand for election for the Mayor of Greater Manchester. That election happened in 2017, and as you all know, Andy was then elected. So it saved me and him all the travel backwards and forwards to London, because Andy then asked me to become the director of his office as the mayor, and also continue my role offering political advice, so a political advisor role. So my career was sort of civil service, then Labour Party, then a bit of kind of freelancing, going my own way as a sole trader, then working for Andy in Westminster, and now working for him in the mayor's office. And throughout that time, you know, you have to sort of take risks, and you have to think about, do you want to make this job change? And what I've always done is kind of followed my heart with what I felt this is what I'm good at. And a lot of people think politics is all about the, you know, the front woman or man, so the member of parliament or the secretary of state or the mayor. But actually, there are a lot of people like me behind the scenes that are actually helping to support what those elected politicians do. And that could be around policy advice. And I'll give you a couple of examples of things I'm doing for Andy in a moment. But it could also be around communications with the media, whether it's sending out press releases or whether it's actually arranging interviews, whether it's dealing with what's called casework. So when local people in the community have an issue, they write to their member of parliament or to the mayor, raising that issue and asking for help for that issue to be resolved. So there's lots of jobs actually involved in supporting the faces of the elected politicians that you'll see on leaflets that come through your doors, on the television every day. So there's plenty of opportunities in politics that aren't just about holding the elected office. So a couple of thoughts on the things that I've been helping Andy with since he's been elected as mayor, and then I'll open up for your questions. Two big ones, I think, that be of interest to you. Back in 2017, Andy made the issue of people sleeping on the streets of Greater Manchester a big commitment to try to get those people into accommodation, because there were nearly 300 people across Greater Manchester every night that were sleeping on our streets in all kinds of weather, and that just can't be acceptable. You know, it's really not good for those individuals, as you can imagine. But people in this part of the country, in Greater Manchester, actually care about things like that. So Andy wanted to do something about it. So we started developing policies, not just from our office, but actually working with all of the homelessness charities and the councils across Greater Manchester to understand what it was we needed to do that would actually genuinely help those people. And what we came up with is something called, you may have heard of this, a bed every night. And that means that every single day of the week, every day of the year, there are around 600 people in a bed every night accommodation, some of whom, if it wasn't for that, would actually be sleeping on our streets. And the number of people sleeping on our streets has now gone from just under 300 to just under 100. The figures vary depending on what night you might go out, but there's still too many, even if it's in double figures. And so I wanted to get to the real heart of, well, what is it that's keeping these people on our streets? So I started doing a walkabout with the City Council outreach team that talk to people that are sleeping on our streets, often called rough sleepers. So we go out at 4 o'clock in the morning to actually speak to those people to find out what their issues are and how we might be able to help them. And literally at 8 o'clock this morning, I had a meeting with all different partners. So that's including police, probation, the health service, mental health provision, charities, the City Council, and many others, where we come together because we actually know the names now of those people that still sleeping on our streets. And we can work out which part of the system knows that individual, what support do they need to be able to get them off the street and into accommodation. So that's part of the role that I do for Andy, is to try to help develop some of the policies that will actually fulfill what Andy pledged to do in the election. And another one that I mentioned that will be very relevant to everyone on the call today is something called Our Pass, which is free bus travel for all 16 to 18-year-olds across Greater Manchester. And it's not just free bus travel, But last week, Andy launched an Our Pass Exclusives app that you can all download from the Apple or Google Play stores. But it's worth getting if you're between 16 and 18. It doesn't yet include the actual card for you to travel, but what it does do is gives you access to all different kinds of exclusives where you can get free meals, you can get free tickets, you can get access to exclusive events, including things like Park Life and many others. And that fits as part of Meet Your Future programme as well, as we're developing this going forward. And that was a project I was very much involved with in getting that up and running, finding the funding so that we could support that, and also working with the team to look at what exclusives we could get to encourage young people to access all the vibrant and many cultural, retail and leisure opportunities that we have across Greater Manchester. So there's just a couple of examples of actual policies, and I'll conclude on this, Jane. But basically my job is to help Andy as the mayor. Sometimes he'll ask me for advice on should he say this, what could we do about this particular issue that's arisen that is of concern to people in Greater Manchester? What should he say if he's doing a media interview? So I offer that kind of political advice as well. And we'll often talk these things through, so we get to the right place. So when Andy's developing a policy or going on the media, we're confident and comfortable in the sorts of things Andy's going to be developing. And of course, we're now looking towards the next mayoral election, which is in May next year. And I'm already starting to work on what are the kinds of things that ought to be included in the manifesto. So all the sort of promises that Andy will make to the people of Greater Manchester in that election when he's asking for them to support him with their vote in May next year. So that's the kind of role I never expected to be here, if I'm quite honest with you all. I'm quite surprised of myself in, you know, being the director of the mayor's office and doing this sort of thing. It wasn't a career plan. I mean, we've heard some senior politicians say that they worked out their career plan when they were at Eton or at Cambridge or something like that. I didn't do anything like that. I didn't know where my career would take me, but I'm very lucky that it's brought me to this position. But what I'd say to you all is think there's many jobs behind the front of the house that you see on your screens and in the papers every day that are really interesting and really can make a difference to the people of Greater Manchester. But also follow your heart and understand what it is that you're good at. So I didn't seek elected office because actually I know that I'm good at my job behind the scenes in supporting elected politicians, and be comfortable with that. But also make sure you use your head as well. My mum and dad told me when I made that jump from customs and excise to work in the Labour Party with a pay cut and a less secure job, they kept saying, are you really doing the right thing? So I did think about it, but then I made the decision to do that, and look where it's got me today. There's going to be many other opportunities throughout the course of this week with transport, with police, with fire, with the NHS, for you to hear about other jobs in the public sector that you might be interested in. So I hope you enjoyed what I've said today and found it interesting at least, but do join the other sessions as part of Meet the Future and the National Careers Week. Thanks, Jane, and thanks everyone Kevin. For joining again.
Kevin, I know you're a super busy man with a very, very full calendar, and we are running over. Do you have a couple of minutes to run through some more questions? Is
Absolutely,
that all right?
Very happy to.
So these have come in from attendees, and we'll try and keep it concise because we are running over. Nice, easy question. Do you enjoy your job, and is it ever stressful?
Yes and yes. That's probably a bit too concise. Yeah, I absolutely love the job. Because in supporting the mayor, I can see things that the mayor is bringing through that are delivering for the people of Greater Manchester. You know, those two examples I gave, every 16 to 18-year-old in Greater Manchester now having free bus travel to go where they want, to explore our city region and to go to different events. That's fantastic. And I had a part in helping deliver that. So that makes it enjoyable. And yes, it can be stressful as well. You know, when I have to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go on the 4 o'clock walkabouts, and the stress actually is not getting up at that time, but it's still seeing people in all kinds of weather sleeping on our streets, and worrying about what more do we need to do and can we do to help move them into accommodation and actually support them. So yeah, there are stressful moments as well, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable job.
And I think it's important to acknowledge that there's stress in all jobs, regardless of your profession. And young people that are watching this, it's developing resilience. How do you manage them situations? It's definitely a skill as you progress into a career and further education if you are still in school. So
just
another
on that,
one,
Jane.
yeah.
Sorry, Jane, interrupted. Just on that, I'd say, and you're never alone. You know, I couldn't do this job alone. I'm surrounded by fantastic colleagues and teams that actually support me and help me in terms of some things I'm doing as well. So never feel that you're alone in these things.
Almost as if it's planned. So what do you look for in people applying for a job in your team?
I don't actually have sort of management responsibilities, so I don't actually employ people in my team. That's part of the combined authority role. But what I would look for is enthusiasm for the job that they're applying for. Kind of, why do you want to do this job? Because, you know, it can be challenging. It could involve all different things. It could be, as we've just been discussing, quite a stressful job. It could be that you have to travel a lot. It could be long hours of work, all different things like that. So I'd look for someone that is enthusiastic about the job that they're applying for. So it's not always just about which, you know, certificates you can present and things like that, because many people can present the certificates of education, but actually, are you enthusiastic? Have you got ideas about what the job could do, what the job entails? So I think, you know, when you're looking at jobs, think about it from that perspective as well. Why do you want the job? And take that motivation with you to the interview, not just, if you like, your certificates of education.
Brilliant, thank you. I'm just going to squeeze in one more. There's two that I think I can group together. So we've had a question from someone who has done some work experience or work shadowing with the Mayor in 2019, and their
Great.
final comment in what they've wrote is suggestions for people who are looking to kickstart their career in research and politics, but outside of London, and grouping that with what advice would you give to someone who wants a career in politics?
Okay, yeah, good questions. These have all been fantastic questions, by the way, so thank you. And thank you for staying on, and sorry for overrunning. But yeah, I mean, we want to make sure that people don't have to go to London to work in any job, actually. You know, we want to make Greater Manchester and the north of England a place where people can stay and still have fantastic careers. So that's what the mayors across the north of England are trying to achieve. And in fairness to the government, that's what their levelling up agenda is about as well. So people don't just have to sort of be educated here, go to university here, and then have to go to London to get the job, kind of thing. So that's the first thing to say. There's lots of different ways you can get involved in sort of research and in politics. I suppose in politics, the first thing is, if you want to get into kind of a role like mine, is to, you know, I got it kind of through belonging to a political party. So, you know, if you're interested in politics and you've got a particular party view, as it were, get involved in that political party, whichever one it might be. And that will give you open up opportunities for you there in terms of the political route. Both elected, if you wanted to become a councillor for that party or seek election as a member of parliament for that party, that's the route to do it, through the political party structure that we have here. It's also probably the best gateway through to working in the jobs behind the scenes, as I say, because Andy and our politics align. You know, we're both, Andy's a Labour mayor, I'm a Labour Party member, so our politics align, and that is incredibly important as well. It would be very difficult for me, I think, if I was a Conservative to support a Labour mayor, because we'd be on different pages where it comes to policy, obviously. So having that kind of party political alignment would really help. In terms of the research, there are lots of different opportunities. Some of it can be in Members of Parliament's office, both locally, so research for them on local issues. It could be for someone that is either a minister or a shadow minister. in a particular portfolio or brief area, whether that's transport or it's housing or something like that. So that's one route, a more political route, if you like. But there are other research opportunities here at the Combined Authority. We have a research team that looks into all areas of policy, not from a partisan point of view, but purely a research and sort of policy perspective. But also there are a number of what are called think tanks. Those things like Centre for Cities, the IPPR North, lots of different organisations like that, the Fabian Society, Onward from the Conservative side. Those sort of organisations also do a lot of research and ask for people to go along on particular policy areas. So there are plenty of opportunities out there to do both research, but also to develop your political careers.
Brilliant. Thanks, Kevin. I am going to wrap it up there because I think we could just listen to you talk all day and we'll just keep going otherwise. If you have submitted any questions and you've not got answers to, myself and the team will spend a couple of minutes after the session has ended replying to them questions, and if there's anything specific to Kevin, we'll redirect them via email to Kevin's office. So Kevin, thank you for joining us. The insights from your career are amazing and invaluable to young people, so thank you for agreeing to host the session, and hopefully we'll have you back doing one of these sessions again in the future.
Thank you, Jane, and thanks again for everyone for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful. And thank you all for joining us today. We hope that you found this session useful. You can keep up to date with all things Meet Your Future at GMAX, which is the Greater Manchester Apprenticeship and Career Service website. The link is on the screen now for you. GMAX, like I said, is the Greater Manchester Apprenticeship and Career Service website where you can find out lots more about careers, apprenticeships and opportunities that are open and available to you. Many of you will already be using GMAX, but if you're not and you'd like to find out more information, then please do ask your teacher or careers leader in school or college. You'll now see a QR code for feedback on screen. We'd love your feedback on how you found the session this morning. It's invaluable to us for planning these sessions and events, so please do take just 1 minute to fill it out, and that's it. We do have a calendar of events running for the rest of this week, so if you would like to see what other sessions we have available, then do head to GMAX and you'll be able to join the sessions that Kevin referenced. That's it from us. We hope you have a lovely day. Thank you.